Good morning, good afternoon, all. Sorry. Let's check that. Okay, so no problem. Welcome, and let's begin with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There are not minutes to review, so just to make that clear, the first application has been requested to adjourn, so is there a motion to adjourn 6:10 seconds?
Yes, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? All right. Second application on the agenda is for 230 Town Line Road. And Nick has recused himself from this, and so we are ready to hear where we are at with this. Good morning, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Have this morning thing going on.
Feels like that.
It's a different
To be fair,
time
it just changed.
I know, but I gotta get my act together.
So I'm Edgar Papazzi, an architect for Daniel Gans, 230 Town Line Road. We were last here in July with a permit amendment proposal to rectify an unfortunate predicament for a renovation addition that was built improperly. Previous to that, we were here back in April as a discussion item to float the basic ideas behind the changes to the house as built. And we're here today. It sounds like, I think you went to visit the house after July. That was what my impression was. And so I'm happy to present the project beforehand again, but if you have feedback for us, I'd be very welcome to hear it.
I personally speaking, I just found it the proposed finish aesthetic is a little busy. I also realize that it will weather and it may just disappear. But it just seemed like it was a little intense.
All the parallel lines, I mean.
Right, yeah. That was my take. All right, welcome the other members' inputs.
Yeah, I agree, especially maybe on the roof, is where it really takes it over the top, because maybe it's not necessary up there.
That's a roof deck. I think.
Yeah, but on the deck, I just think.
We asked you to consider cabling that, so
Well-
it's a little less intense.
You haven't yet, but I'm certainly happy to try that. I mean, we have cable rail elsewhere proposed, so it could, if that's a simple solution to turn that into cable rail up there, we'd be very happy to try that.
Okay. It says there's cable rail between the existing stanchions throughout. I'm speaking about Ahrb 01 lower right hand corner.
Right, exactly. So because of the spacing of those wood members, those horizontal battens, we needed to, achieve New York State code for railing. So it's also cable rail, as well as there's certainly basically double railing.
That's
The cable and then the wood, members in front of that. But if you'd like me to take those wood members out, I can try that. At the top.
It just kind of gets heavy.
Yeah, I hear you. It might lighten it up a little bit.
Would you mind doing an overview of the changes?
Oh,
Just
sure,
so
absolutely.
Walk through them step by step, please.
So, I think it's pretty clear that what the board disliked about what was built. It was the exterior stair, the siding, the windows that were installed not according to the approved plans. And so we came up with this notion to clad the addition to the original 1970s house in clear horizontal battens to lend a more streamlined appearance, as well as we wanted to add a sunshade kind of element, a horizontal element above the second story windows, creating a more horizontal effect over the existing side. And so based on your feedback at the first meeting, we took some of those battens and used them vertically on the existing house also to try and sort of unify the language of the addition and the original house. So I recommended that we also demolish that roof stair that's very visible on the south side of the house and replace it with a much smaller spiral stair that's clad in wood, teak wood slats to match the existing decks. And the proposal involves replacing all the upper window sashes of the installed double hung windows with ones that don't have muntins to lend a more modern look to go with the overall kind of aesthetic. And we've already been talking about the railings. Right now, there's all these wood balusters everywhere, and so we're proposing to take all those out and replace that with cable rail between the existing stanchions, posts. And so the other aspect of it is to repaint all the existing trim to something that's more neutral. It's a gray color. Everything is white currently. We're trying to match the weathered cedar appearance, give it more unified aesthetic. And then the last piece of the proposal is to rethink the front entryway and make it a little more fitting to the house by taking out the existing overhang, replacing the slatted entry pergola, and putting in a larger pivot door with a glass side light and a built-in bench. Overhanging slatted frame.
You're referring to what we see in the bottom right-hand corner of the one, is that correct?
The front entryway,
Yes.
that the view, the rendering of that is, yeah, exactly, Ahrb 05, it's the bottom right image.
Ahrb 01, right? I'm sorry.
Ahrb 01, well, yes, indeed, that's a similar view.
I'm not sure we have Ahrb 05. This packet does not have that.
Oh, you don't have 05? No, I'm sorry, it's odd. The printing company must have left that out. I have a small copy of it here. It's essentially more renderings of the.
Can you come closer?
Of course.
The gray that's described for the shade frame, is that something that's close to season cedar, or is that going to be a color that kind of sticks out?
No, we're trying to keep it in the same tonal family as the cedar. And I have, there should be, I think it's Ahrb
Here it is. Last
03.
page is 05, is Ahrb 05, it's the last page.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the 05 came in on the last. Oh, you do have it, okay.
Yeah.
It's the last page, yep.
So yeah, that color, that pink color is on Ahrb 03. We're proposing Benjamin Moore Harbor Gray to repaint all the window frames and door frames and all the trim, existing trim on the roof and elsewhere.
Right. On the south view from southeast on 05, that framing tends to be quite light in that, so that was one triggered my question.
Well, you know, the vagaries of printing and the kind of trying to get this ultimate match, it may be coming across as light, but it's meant to really match the gray of weathered cedar, weathered red cedar.
I'm able to hear you.
We're just
I'm
discussing.
trying to recall back the very first house that was built, the house that was built
Mhm.
was not according to what the board approved.
Mhm.
What parts of the house were not built to plan?
Mike, can you answer that?
Pretty much all of it.
None of it matched. This was not to be, this was not to be, this was not to be.
Mostly the decking,
Exterior access.
but not the main house itself.
Main house was done slightly different than what was. A lot of the stuff on the outside of it.
So we're just trying to
This
fix
was
the
supposed to-
decking.
Well, the original plan was to have a walkway all the way around. on the second floor.
Did you delay your presentation today? Question mark. I just saw something from
Denise,
a lawyer or something.
Janice, please mute.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
So that's still in my mind, that gray tends to be light from your sample here.
Right,
Okay.
right. It's appearing too light.
There's the circular stairwell, it looks a little rusty color. What is that, metal, that is gonna be rusted?
It's clad in wood. It's essentially, a tropical hardwood teak that is meant to match the decking material.
Okay, so it just looks brown. but
Yeah.
it's not- okay.
Exactly.
Is there any, I see a little bit of landscaping. But is there any landscaping planned for other than what we see?
The idea was to, in front of the kind of the basement egress, to plant that in the, as you see in the renderings, with beach grasses, as well as the other side of the addition at the base. So to see that, we would look at Ahrb 01, the lower left-hand corner, and then the lower right-hand corner for the plantings in the front as well.
Are there any plans for the driveway?
The driveway as existing will remain, if that's acceptable. It's got it's a circular drive.
How much do we have to say about driveways?
Nothing really.
Did you have anything else to comment upon?
Not necessarily. I've taken both of your comments about the railing at the top and then the gray paint appearing too light in the renderings. But that's all I had in terms of.
And the plans for the fireplace, what it was to what you're doing now are,
There's an existing chimney that is currently stuccoed and painted, and we would paint that to match the other paint, as well as put a steel cap on it. It doesn't have, currently not capped, so. And that would all be painted the same
Is that a concern to you, the style of the?
I just noticed a change, I couldn't tell what was happening. Yeah, I'm just not sure how much more there is to be changed about it, or any improvement. Sure, it's not going to fit in.
Okay.
Right, no, try to understand. So. Lighting, outdoor lighting for the house, I
Right.
see 2 lights on the whole house, but I don't see any proposed lighting on the entryway or.
On ARB 03, there's a light fixture in the lower right-hand corner that we're proposing, just very small, minimal LED downlighting for entryways to code. Nothing kind of as large and dark as the ones that are attached right now.
Okay, where are those sconces on this drawings, on the house?
If you look at the CAD drawings, which are, and I'll direct you to the elevation. Okay, so the front entryway, actually, we are proposing some recessed fixtures in the soffit above the entryway, but anywhere where we need exterior lighting, you'll see on the elevations, we've put in these little sconces. Like for example, on PA05, you'll see on the rear facade, there are downlights at the doorways. Also PA06. We propose to remove the existing lighting that's there right now.
The difference in height on these and PO6 is because,
The difference in height of the existing,
no, the proposed lighting, there's one right over the door and then top on the right, there's one, like way up high.
oh, yeah, well, that's what's there right now. I think the owner placed those there as, sort of, I think they're just sort of area lights. I'm not really sure what the purpose of those are. You see in the existing drawing, they're in both those locations. So kind of put them back where they were. But if we don't need those extra ones on the corners of the building, maybe we can take those out.
How much lighting do you need out there? Is it
Yeah.
lighting a stairway or something?
I think they're just meant to light the ground for occasional use.
Okay, I don't know if we want to light anything, we don't have to light for safety.
Yes,
So maybe if they don't have a purpose, let's take them out.
sure.
And they are not light emitting or passive shade around the fixture, is that correct?
It's just purely a downlight. It's essentially a box that just points downward.
So maybe, can we turn to the light emissions page?
Sure.
ARB04.
Oh, it's ARB04.
A lot of windows. It's almost a full entire 2 or 3 rooms that have all wall. Is that approved of the job?
Might be more. Have you increased the number of windows in the addition from what was?
It's hard to say. I think it's roughly equivalent, but I have to check what was approved originally to give you an answer. This is
Okay, I would definitely want to know that, because I would think
it's a lot less. That's the only.
Is the property, or the dwelling deeply recessed in the property, or is it down a flag lot? What's our orientation?
It's a corner lot, Town Line Road and
Caroline and Daniels, okay. Is it screened by vegetation?
yes, there's a fairly thick screen of trees and landscape plants on Daniels.
Because for the boards, just for the board identification, our guiding principles in the code for the AHRB when it comes to lighting is, will there be light extrusion that would bother neighbors, or would it affect a public right of way? Would it cause motorists to be distracted or blinded? So something that we can always take into, or we should always take into account when we're looking at lighting is, what are the externalities?
So when you were saying how many windows there are from the previous, I was really only referring to this one area. Were you referring to the overall house, and that overall there's less windows?
I think almost on every facade there was less. We had calculated that, given that to the board many months ago. We were comparing what had been approved at one time to what was built.
It looks fairly similar.
This is the original house, not the addition. It's
So it's the same. That sounds right. Or just
No, this is the old part. This is this portion. This is the addition. You can see what was done.
Where the original house has a bank of, sliding doors that I think that would appear in the Ahrb or the lowest image on the right as the kind of the most salient source of light there. But the addition is the part to the left of that.
This is existing. That's what existed before touchdown. I don't think we can comment on that.
we cannot comment on the existing house, we can only comment on the addition.
Will we comment on what's before us? The addition was proposed.
The calculations on the next page are showing the actual glazing percentage in the on each facade of the building, EA 000.
So I just don't see if there's any difference.
Right.
So you're saying if
This
there's
is-
less windows.
Yeah, this is what was built. It's just that the staircase and the railing covers up some of this. This is what you were concerned about. This is what existed before. This is the red part. This is existing construction. But your calculations.
Is there any way to see you should drawing the original drawings?
This house existed before our
Yeah.
village.
But I remember that we approved something before probably I was on the
Yes.
board, and then that drawing, this co-drawing, I would like to see versus what was built here. Can you move it?
What are the concerns vis-a-vis?
Well, if they didn't build what was approved, I would like to know the differences between those. Discrepancy. I understand that we have what we have to work with without tearing it down and starting again. I just want to know kind of what leeway I feel comfortable commenting on without being too extreme.
So if you can bring in this in back, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think the focus, yeah, and then the top railing.
If
Maybe more
there's a way
diminutive.
to just give us a good rendering of what that would be without the additional, with just the cable and not.
Sure, yeah, no, that's,
Just so that it minimizes that punch on the top,
sure.
which almost becomes, you know, more structured.
Anyway,
Easier than I thought.
oh,
Go back into this. Now,
Um,
2:30.
anticipation.
That's it.
all right, so this was the addition that was approved.
No, this is the actual original house. And the addition is to the right, past the tower, yeah. This is the entrance. The old entrance.
These are the drawings that they include.
Right.
They are,
They are not.
They
This
are not.
is- This came from somewhere else. This was at one time presented, but this was not what was approved.
This is what's listed in our folder as.
I have a print here, these are Nick Martin's drawings from 2018, I don't know if that's.
Right, but that was not
that-
what I already.
That wasn't it?
I could send,
yeah, please.
I have the drawings that were approved, and I also have a set of drawings that compare the approved drawing to what's existing, which was presented to the board, and the board said, you know, that's when it said come back.
Okay, you can send those to, what's the email we should send it
Sagaponic. No, Sag
to? Info
Village.
at sagaponicvillage.org.
No, what's the one for this? Gmail. It's a Gmail.
Those are next drawings.
Pardon me?
Those are next drawings, right?
Yes,
And that was approved. Was approved?
right, I believe, yes, yeah.
Yeah, approved. Are there other pages to it?
And I just sent it to your email address.
Not mine, it won't go to this.
Oh, so it should go where? To-
I gotta ask the clerk, I'm not sure.
I think our internet might be down. That was probably not here, on my phone.
So just so I have this clear. That was approved. And this is what was built. So this-
At this point, I think just collecting what I've asked you for, getting that done. We'll get these out to the board, the new board members, and we can continue dialogue next month. I think. Do you have any other questions as far as any concerns?
If that's what was approved, why isn't, I mean, I know that all of this was done, but why isn't it going back to what was approved?
Well, there's nothing to preclude them from coming back with, or us treating it as a fresh application. If there's water under the bridge, so be it. The applicant would like to come back to us with reimagined, redesigned plans. We should review it as such, as a new application.
I think based on the discussion, John, this was probably before, this was when Chris was here. We had kind of moved forward to this, and then we were trying to rescope and reimagine a little bit less of the decking and the visual impact of that, all white metalwork, etc., and all that. So that was where the board at the time was coming from when we looked at this as a discussion item. So let us take some time to digest this a little bit, I think. And you'll need to understand that the board, several of the members of the board have changed since that discussion. Yes, Mr. Gans.
I just wanted to say what might be helpful is to read the board's comments from after we went back and discussed what had been built, and the board gave very, I think, direct and thoughtful response to what irritated them so much about the changes that have occurred. Certain things are similar, certain things have changed. We really tried to address those things that we were told were the issues that were most concern to the board.
Okay, do that. Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. And Pat, if you can pull those notes out in discussion, then it sounds good, very helpful. Good job. If we can get Nick to come back in, that would be helpful. Okay. And 199 LLC. You have a packet for us?
Pardon me?
Packet? And we'll be looking at the document. The seeking document. 99. So I can't continue on that. Okay. Do
Should we start with the secret or however you'd like to phase it?
I'm sorry.
However you'd like to.
Yeah, just let's go over the facts, just so that we're starting fresh. Okay. So, I'll speak very briefly about the secret documentation and then we can move through that, but this is part of the demo application process on this particular application.
Morning all. So as we discussed in our last meeting, part of the Ahrb procedures for a demolition application is the submission of and review of secret documents. Secret is the acronym for State Environmental Quality Review Act. That requires us to take a look at the potential environmental impacts or lack thereof of the action. So as very brief overview, under secret, there's type 1 actions, which typically have an adverse impact on the environment or at least require a closer look. There are unlisted, which is a gray area, and there are type 2 actions, which are statutorily presumed to have no adverse impact on the environment. Under state law, the demolition and the construction of single-family dwellings and accessory structures thereto are type 2 actions, which mean that they are statutorily presumed to not have adverse impacts on the environment. To that end, I have prepared the document which you should all have in front of, a resolution by which this board takes lead agency pursuant to secret and finds as a type 2 action requiring no further environmental review and finding that it has no potential for adverse environmental impacts.
Thank you.
If anyone has any questions, board or applicant?
No, I just want to say that I didn't know that we needed it initially, and I'm glad that I said no, I think that there's no issue.
Does the board have any questions for me?
So, second page of this is a vote for it, is that correct? And should that take place now?
Yes.
Okay, all right, very good. So, this, as you can see on page 2, the resolution shall take effect immediately, whereby we accept this responsibility. Sorry.
Accepting lead agency pursuant to State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA, and finding the demolition and the construction at 199 Wainscott Harbor Road to be a type 2 action pursuant to SECRA.
Thank you. So, would you want to poll each of us? How we move forward?
You could do that. I could do that. Actually, it's probably better as a chair if you
Okay.
do the polling.
All right.
Just formality.
So, Emily? Yeah or nay?
Yeah.
Very good. Megan? Okay, Nick? Okay, myself, so that's 4, and Tony is not here. I've recorded that here, and this meeting will go to. Ready?
Does it have to be, should there be a motion besides?
That was for lack. If you'd like to do a more formal
Yeah.
recitation, that's
No worries.
All those in
as long as
favor?
it's signed and entered.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we continue. Were there any follow-ups on the demolition application?
Square footage, you asked for the size. Couldn't find any drawings, documents, but when the survey outlined the footprint of the existing structure is 768 square feet. Aligns with what we sort of used in our proposed structure.
Actually, it was a little bit less, by the way. Because when we slid
Yeah.
back, we eliminated the stairs and things. Roughly the same amount, but we did reduce it and shift it further away from the front street elevation.
Any other questions on the demo? All right, is there a motion to approve the demo at this point? All those, second, sorry,
Second.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Well, you don't happen to have one more. One more copy
Of which one? I do not know.
of this presentation. It's fine, John, I don't have. it.
That's fine, that's fine.
Yes.
Could you pass that to Joe? We'll share a copy of it. That was my demo.
I'll just take a quick look and you can have.
Say it again.
Dates of application.
Thank you.
All right. I have asked you about the glazing figures, and it came down to a ratio as opposed to a percentage. Could you redo that?
Sure, how we calculate it, what's on the drawings, it's a percentage,
Can we refer to the page?
Oh, sure.
So there's north exposure.
past the renderings, past the diagram which illustrates, it's sort of the middle of the set, past the renderings, past the diagram which illustrates the materials. There are the lighting calculations. It's the rear elevation, which is our north elevation.
Take a look at.
It's on, and this is a new diagram which I prepared to help illustrate the percentage. So the area of the rear wall is 1,894 square feet. And that is the wall that's outlined in the blue line. If you look at your set, it doesn't doesn't factor count in the roofs. And I also, to be consistent, I did not count the wall area of the garage, which is sort of the front of the house. And on this elevation, it's the left sort of gable end. on the
Would you like
side.
me to go?
I'm just looking for it in here. Is it in here?
It's not,
Okay.
it's not in there. I didn't get a printout. Not of this one.
It's in the set, it's after the renderings. Yep, there you go. Oh, this one?
This
Oh,
is
this
the
one I
new one.
emailed to you.
Right,
I just emailed.
but I didn't print
It
out.
was not this, I apologize. I do have one printout, I believe if you like, I can give that to you. So if I take the rear wall of the house, that's the area of the rear wall, the glazing. And that elevation comes up to 711 square feet. So the percentage of glazing to the rear wall is what's listed 37.5%. We rounded, so I didn't count it all the way down, it's 37.5%. This diagram illustrates if you took all the glazing and you essentially stacked it to one side of the house. There's a line there in red which outlines the glazing, and then I mirrored it, I flipped it to the other side of the house, so that white area to the right of the house is the same exact area as the glazing, it's another 37.5%. Everything hatched in green accounts for the other 25% of the house. So this diagram hopefully illustrates that the amount of glazing in this elevation is like 37.5%, and speaking to your office, not 60%, which I don't know where that number is. we go back to the actual architectural set, you'll see that the first floor of this house is larger than the second floor, and most of that glazing is at the first floor. There's no sliding doors or terraces on the second floor, bedroom windows. So
There's still front elevation right there. I want to see the back. Yeah.
So you'll see the majority of that area, I don't have the exact percentage, is across the first floor of the house, which is much larger than the second.
And the height of the first floor windows on the back is
Head height of the windows on the second floor,
first floor.
first floor, they're
9.
yeah, they're 9 feet. 10-foot ceilings, 9 foot.
And that's universal across the first floor.
Correct, yes.
Okay. This is completely clear on the back.
Is that
Presently. This is all this.
That's where my tennis court is going, that's my lot.
that's your lot?
The existing structure that you've kept,
Yes.
and that's outside of the current setbacks. How is that connected with the current code? Are you able to keep that?
It's pre-existing, non-conforming, he went on a variance on zoning board to keep that structure. As of right, we could have built on it 2 stories, it's not a pyramid violation. And as a give, we negotiated to slide the house, that existing structure away, so there was a better connection to our house. In doing so, we eliminated a small 9 square feet of the existing house, and it allowed us to sort of connect it to the allowable building.
And was there anything in the language to keep the vernacular of the existing house or not?
No, as of right, we still choose those things. On the renderings, you'll see we chose to sort of keep that as a 1-story element to the structure and not overwhelm the street. But it's not the same exactly.
This is the existing. This one's not. Existing house is going to be all.
Do you have any plans for screening between the house work and the neighbor?
Yes, 100%. I've already spoken to him and he's acknowledged we're gonna be putting up a line of green giants on the tennis court side. And my other neighbor, Janice, she already has a line of trees and I'm gonna probably add to that a line of hedges. I did come up with a landscape plan for you. Unfortunately, my landscaper's father died. And so he was unable to complete it and I didn't want to give you this.
Okay, that's if a general.
Even though it's pretty detailed,
Yeah.
it just was too, so by tomorrow or Thursday, we will be submitting that. I imagine you're gonna have comments, we're gonna probably have to come back, no doubt, one more time. And before we come back, I plan on having that in everybody's hands so you could see that I'm trying to be sensitive to the neighborhood and my neighbor.
And just curious, is this a house for sale or is it?
No. No, everybody asks me that, I am a builder, but I promise you, I want to live in Sagaponic in this house. It's, I don't wanna say it's my dream house, but I designed it with myself 100% in mind. I have a master bedroom on the first floor, which a lot of people have pushed back about, that I should have had one on the second floor. This is truly a residence for me based on my years of experience and what I want to live in. I'm not that young, so let's say the rest of my life, hopefully.
concept of the landscaping too, you'll see it's not a, like the rendering, it's not a wide open, clear lot. It's very vegetated, very gardens, very ornate, it's not a lot of grass. So the rendering is sort of an artist's representation of the house, that's really what we're showing. It's the house in context, it's not actually depicting the landscaping.
I want less lawn, less grass cutting.
So if you'd like, I can sort of walk you through the house again.
sure.
Yeah. Great.
I think the renderings were digital form last time. The site plan, we'll start with the, maybe go back to the very beginning. Just walk through the whole presentation. Yeah, so first page, next page is the site plan. The tennis court on the north end of the property there is already permitted. I believe it has been cleared to start construction on the tennis court. We decided to put the house on the south end of the lot, with the majority of living spaces facing the main part of the yard, which is north. That just happens to be side. It's not opposite the street, if you will. That's the north side of the house. The next two shots are aerials, just to put in context the location. You'll see to the northeast is reserve land, wooded areas. There's a house north, south, and house to the west. First page is, next page is the rendering. So the concept, again, materials, warm stone was an important element in this project. The gabled elements are stuccoed, ephes, very intentional, with metal roofs, standing seam, metal roofs, not significant fascias, overhangs, just a clean square out of there. The flat elements, which there are some, there's no second floor terraces on the house, but there are some flat roof elements. Those were a warmer material, meaning wood brownish tones of, in this case, we have proposed trespa, which you have samples of, I see in the folder there, as opposed to wood, which trespa has no weathering, no staining, no color change to it, it'll stay like it is from the day it's put up. Again, stone, I know was discussed, but stone is a very important element to the house. We are proposing solar panels on the roof, not required by code, but that is, you know, intentional to have solar on the roof. That's south facing. And yeah, and there's a pocket in the roof so that it's flush, it's recessed into the roof, not just applied. The entryway is stone, connecting piece between the sort of existing structure and the house, stone. On the front elevation, the garage doors are around the side of the house facing east, or the rear opposite the street. Next page is looking southeast, so from the street. Again, no landscaping is in place. Next elevation is the other corner of the rear, not really visible to anybody. If you're to the north, straight on you. That's a covered porch to the left there in front of you. There's some glazing around the barbecue area, just to provide an enclosure for some screening to be brought down to make that a screening porch. You see the garage to the left there. That garage, I did not calculate in the rear lighting analysis. Next page is an aerial shot, bringing context with the neighbors. Next one's the same. Let me get into some illustrations of what it would look like lit at night. Put lights in the garage, although really got most of the time, and I did not calculate that in the analysis again. It would bring our numbers down. There's a lot less windows in the garage than most of the house. Next illustration is a straight on rear, show you illumination. Right. I know it looks like the trees are upright and everything. That's just how it prints. All right, so in the next page sort of illustrates the material specifications and where they're called out from. These are actual images of the actual color, as close as we can, and then we print it, you'll see the earthy tones, browns, grays, beige. And then we have the light analysis of the elevations and the percentages on there, and then I had working drawings with dimensions. Yeah, questions on this?
Tom, also, Mr. Burns has provided a solar panel with some other samples, if you want to see them.
Yeah, I actually bought a full solar panel and a piece of the siding material that replicates the wood. And the stone sample, they were in there. The solar panels, 4 by 6, but I would have imagined that you all would have at least taken a look at it. I could go get the smaller pieces if you need them for any reason.
Yeah, that's so.
I'd say bring them in and have them on the cameras for.
They're in that back.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. It's not really s-
Yeah, I think there's a general leading indicators of that across the board for most projects. These are particularly wide. I think you can make stuff, for example. But it's lead time is the south. Versus very too large, too wide.
Here's the Tresco.
What would be better if it was over here, because it's not gonna be on camera.
No problem.
I think we're just.
I can do that too.
Piece of metal.
Oh. That's the metal, color of the metal.
This is the final finish of the.
That's the stucco finish. And that is the sort of the connecting piece between the stone and the wood elements and the roof.
Is this the final color or
Texture?
finish?
It's I would say that is the color that I picked. I didn't want a bright white, I wanted a soft beige. There is some flexibility, but I was hoping to use that to keep it very neutral.
I'm just asking if there's an intent to paint this.
No.
So that there's a different amount of reflectivity to it.
No, this is pretty soft reflection. And the whole idea of my design was no maintenance, or virtually no maintenance. So I picked products that would be as natural as possible, the stone and the Trespa to replicate a cedar finish, a weathered cedar finish, but it won't diminish and it'll stay clean. You can just kind of hold the material off. And the stone, I actually have thought to possibly, and I was going to bring it up to soften up the face of the house by changing that. It's a little bit, I don't want to say austere the wrong way, but it's a very kind of monolithic color, and I wanted to bring in something that was more in line possibly with the context of, natural, a more natural looking stone, something along these lines where it's you know, more kind of to bring down the modernness, even though it is clearly to me a modern house. I wanted it to feel in the context of what, you know, the neighborhood was. I built a lot of modern houses, and certainly the interior of this house is pretty modern, but what I wanted to do was keep the house in context with the neighborhood. So I went with a, you know, gable roof, and I tried to tone down that feeling so that it's really, in my view, even though it's modern, blends with the neighborhood. So my neighbor to the south, Janice, has a reasonably modern house. It's a traditional shape, but it's pretty modern looking. And so I decided that I wanted to be I wanted to fit in with my Sagaponic neighbors as much as I could.
Do you happen to know if there is a lot of stucco?
I would say it does have a sort of substantial amount, but it's flanked on all sides by the wood element and the stone, so it doesn't really feel as overwhelming as it might sound. We didn't do a calculation on it, but it's certainly.
I was more than buying the neighbors nearby, and I think where I'm coming from is that the wood is very nice that you showed us, and I love the color, and I love the whole color scheme, including the stone, as evenly toned as it is, I like it a lot. But I think that it's maybe more stucco than wood. I see just not a lot of the wood, and I think to be more in line with the neighbors, it might be better to have more wood elements than stucco, personally, to be more fitting to Sagaponic. I don't know how many houses there are in Sagaponic with this much stucco, so that's kind of where I'm being held up a little bit.
No, I understand. What I would like to say with regard to that is that the stucco elements actually do not face the street particularly. Mostly, if you look at the western face of the house, it's probably 90% wood and stone, and almost no stucco, maybe a small percentage. In addition, to further diminish the impact to the neighborhood and the street and my neighbors, I intentionally kept the number of windows facing the front to a minimum, certainly what I wanted as far as utility, but I decided I wanted to keep it so that all the negative impacts that could possibly occur are not directly facing anybody at all, because there'll be trees and fences on the side. So I'm certainly aware of it.
I think we appreciate that. I'm just not seeing more than, say, 5% of the wood across the board. Unless I'm missing something. I see on the west you have a wooden wall.
It wraps around
You
the.
have a few small elements, but it looks like 80% stucco, 70, maybe 25% stone, and maybe 5 to 10% wood. I mean, that's just sort of
The majority of the house is gabled, and that's the bulk of the house is stucco. So proportion wise, I would say, yeah, 70% of the house is stucco. The one-story flat roof elements really happen a little around the street elevation in the west, and then around the back, the north elevation on the right. So yeah, I would agree.
I mean, there's been many modern houses applied for in Sagaponic, and generally they end up having very warm exteriors. Even the last application here was 100% wood. And stone, as you know, is a foreign object in this area completely. There's only glacial erratics. There are no stone yards or any stone to be found in Long Island. So that's a completely foreign object. And stucco is, you know, really it is what it is, but at 75%, it's certainly not indigenous to Sagaponic. Metal roofs have their time and period in colonial times, but certainly not solar panels. So I think the overall ask is to try to warm up the elevation in keeping with possibly the neighborhood, and trying to just consider more of the flat back, which, as we know, it's actually plastic. object that appears like this.
Yeah, it looks nice, and I like the color scheme, so the color scheme is a little cold, but the stone on stucco.
Happened if we made the face of the lot, that's more like the trespass. To kind of,
Yeah, I mean, it's just an idea to keep the gateway elements as low material. You could have introduced more of the truss on maybe the one-story elements, you just keep stucco box in the middle.
The second comment, I was thinking the second floor of the south elevation has windows that, I couldn't find a window schedule, I saw a door schedule. The label is DP 4200 is the,
That's a design question, yeah, numbers on the floor plan, yeah.
okay, anyway, they seem to be the same, first and second floor. Is that accurate, the size of the south elevation?
I think there might be, I like to keep it so uniform.
Yeah, it just, that appears somewhat commercial, it reminds me of the watermill center. And I worked on that project and the idea was to make it mechanic and utilitarian. That was the concept of Mr. Wilson. And it just reminds me of this elevation that appears quite commercial, really.
I think the idea was to sort of connect them to a point that they feel sort of vertically connected, like these slices.
Right.
Like, this is circulation, the second floor, we could definitely bring the sills up,
Yeah, easily.
no problem.
I think that might just, again, you know, I'm a modernist as well, and but I have a great legacy and interest in historic structures, and I feel like if we consider the scale of it and the foreshortening aspect of the second floor, it might lend itself to being more of a in scale residence, less commercial.
How's that south and north elevation?
The south particularly, I think the north actually has, because the doors are so tall, I think that there's quite a bit of, I think it's calling it here, but it's the north, I think
Yeah.
there's quite a, it looks like 70 to 80% of that elevation on the first floor is for ceiling.
Well, there are 10
9
foot
foot
ceilings with
10
9-foot doors.
Right,
Head height is not-
but if we looked at the quantity, it looks like, you know, so those are 9 by, I don't know, let's call it 3.5, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 of those units plus an additional 4 other units, leaving, that's probably about 80% or 85% glass facade on the first floor. Just making everyone aware.
We could lower the head height on them, probably to 8 foot, which would probably give it a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, that's up to you, I mean, to
Well, I
me,
wanna accommodate, I don't
yeah,
wanna.
I
wanna
wonder
push back.
if you keep some, you know, remove some of them and keep, I don't wanna answer your architecture, it just seems like it's a very large percentage on that elevation.
You know, unfortunately and fortunately, the rooms that those are connected to are bedroom, living room, dining room, and family living area, you know, it's
Right.
not like we have these vast.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So, you know, if I brought the head height down, I imagine that wouldn't overly impact the light element going into the house, but I certainly could do something like that to.
I mean, just looking at this yellow diagram, that's a lot of yellow.
Yeah, I got it, I hear you.
And I appreciate, I mean, modern houses have class that have a coefficient that allows them to be insulated, but it's just, it seems like a lot.
Flat on, if you look at it in context with the porches, the ins and the outs, the breaks, it definitely does not appear as it does in the flat 2D elevation, even though all the same glass is still there.
Yeah, so maybe it's just being more selective. And I'm not sure, but is that lot behind, is that?
That's a 20-acre reserve never gets built.
That's right.
So back to the metal roof comment, are you saying metal roof's not an option?
I
or-
like the metal
No,
roof, I
no,
just
I
think the
think
metal
it's just-
roof plus the
it's
stucco
so-
plus
The
the
composition
stone.
of you adding up a reflective solar and metal roof, 85% stucco and then on the first floor, 85% glass. It's a lot of reflectivity, it's a lot of,
That is the north elevation.
right. And then in the south though, I don't know what the count is, it's rather high for glass. So it's just, you know, life is a balance. I think we're trying to ask for some temperance on these elements.
Okay,
It's not like solar. Flat or small.
well, I laid it out so that it doesn't face the street at all, 0, and I recessed it. And that's the, I spoke to the solar guy, that's the optimum location for
Yeah,
it.
I agree with you. I think that sounds fine.
Appreciate it.
Also, when you say facing the street, it's people are just mostly driving by, right?
Right.
So we're also getting 45-degree angles at it. It's not just standing in your front drive and looking at it this way. You're seeing it this way from the street also, so.
Yeah.
You do have a neighbor there.
Overall, the design's really nice.
Is there a more flat option?
There's one flat section over the entryway.
No, but I mean is this added,
Galvalume.
It's zinc coated.
So is this a matte finish?
Yes. Okay. We will clearly come back with the specific items to be addressed.
Yeah.
What I'd like to do is, for clarity, we're gonna reduce the glass on the front. I'm gonna work on adding much more of the Trespa element on the body of the building to reduce the stucco, and I guess those are the two. If I do come back with a modified stone, what I'd like to do is possibly give as a potential alternative. I appreciate that you like this and I do like it, but if I come back with something to further soften the look of it, I would like that possibly to be considered so that it blends with the Trespa element as well.
Are those your options there?
Yeah, I picked a bunch of, I just went through some catalogs, and I don't want these to be written in stone. But, I thought something softer like that, or something a little more, more texture to feel less, trying to bring it in. I live in Sagaponic. I want it to blend, but I also want to continue the kind of modern idea. And then this one here, I like the linear feeling of it, but it still doesn't feel industrial. This one I didn't.
The amount of gaps in between all of those years.
But I wanted to make them
All
tight.
kinds of weather conditions.
Well-
Or ice will get in it.
Well, no, I wanted to make them tight with a thin layer of cement. I am a builder, so I'm aware of what you're saying. I don't want those problems either. But that's just the idea, and I certainly don't want to. I could leave these, but I would rather. All right.
If you can send us,
Okay.
a spec of what you're thinking.
All right, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, everybody.
May a neighbor make a comment? I'm a neighbor.
Yes.
Hi.
Yes, Jenny.
Hi there. Hi, I'd love to. I just have 3 things to comment on. The stucco, the windows and the doors.
Can you please introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm Janice Delano, and I have the house on the south side of this house. So I am particularly concerned with the south side. But I wanted to make one comment on the stucco, where people were talking about how there's an awful lot of stucco on the house. I think part of why it's so noticeable is that it is so light. And I think if you were to go along where the Ahrb store is, that road where the Ahrb store is, there is a completely stucco house. People were saying there isn't much stucco, but there's 100% stucco house there. It's more of a beigey brownish gray. That's a wonderful color, I think. And I built a house previously on School Street where I did one of the barns in stucco. And it was that same white that Mike is proposing, that kind of beigeish white. It's identical. And I really didn't like it once I did it. So I repainted the stucco to exactly match that house over in Sagaponack that is 100% stucco. So I think he might want to just drive by there and take a look at that because it kind of blends in with the environment. It's a wonderful stucco color.
Do you know the front house, Denise?
Denise, I believe
It
that's,
is across from the lake, up the street from Ahrb. It's a huge stucco house. It's very pretty.
Denise, I believe that's Venetian plaster though. I don't think that's stucco.
They painted it, and I painted mine the same color. The lady gave me the color, and I painted it.
Well, the Wolfer building, so that was the same architect, the same time frame as that building?
I think probably, but then recently they painted that stucco house. They painted it again from pink. They made it sort of a beigey, grayish, brownish gray. And that's what I just would like to suggest, that if we had a stucco that was not so off-white and more beigey gray, I don't think you'd notice it as much.
I would certainly consider that. You know, there's flexibility here, and I want to build a house, so I'm willing to, you know, look at elements that will satisfy everybody and still keep the character. So I definitely will look at that. I appreciate it. Thanks.
I have two other things. One is, we were talking about the window size, how there's an awful lot of windows. And I do agree from my own perspective, looking at the second story windows on the south floor. The second story windows, I think, on the south floor are much bigger and lower than the second story windows on the north side. And I think if they all match, that'd be, if you're concerned about a lot of, you know, light, that's the side that's going to be really shining in on a neighbor, because he's 400 feet from the property line on the other side. So that might be something to consider, shorter windows that matched, you know, this north.
While we were standing here, we already decided we're going to do that. Exactly.
And then lastly, I want to make a point about the 9-foot doors on the north side. I want to first of all say that I was approved for 9-foot doors in my own house right next door. And I've done 3 or 4 houses, and I have to say, then when you have 10-foot ceilings, the difference between 8-foot doors and 9-foot doors is incredibly different on the inside. And, you know, somebody's got to be living on the inside. And I am so grateful to have 9-foot doors to look at from the inside. It makes all the difference in the world. And I don't think it makes much difference from the outside at all. So I would be a big advocate of his 9-foot doors.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much. You can be my neighbor any day.
Oh, and one last thing is, those 9-foot doors are not facing the neighbor. They're facing the other side where there ultimately will be a neighbor, but they are 400 feet from the neighbor's, you know, property line, so he can't see them.
I got it. And we're also going to be treating it as I agreed with everybody. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. We're going to try and reduce those window sizes also, as something that we've talked about on the second floor.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Janice.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, yes.
2 seconds?
All those in favor?
Bye.
5:43 agenda.
Give us a minute to pass out the papers. Yes, please. Oh, am I taking it?
Yes.
I gave the next one. Just leave it at that. One was a supplemental file.
These are multiple copies.
Okay. I'll take one.
Share that. You want?
What's that?
The materials?
Just
We're,
leave
we're,
it on
we're gonna leave them because
Okay.
they're very heavy.
Thank you.
But thank you.
John Bennett, Bennett Reed, from Lawyers in Southampton, was judged from Conic Environmental Services here. Here in the lobby from Wall Street. And I think Melissa, maybe this should have been Holland. We assumed the application was filed with the Lane, that's the property. We're here to talk to you the second time to seek approval, your approval to construct a single family residence associated improvements on the vacant.
You're gonna need to raise your voice for the recording. Thank you. Depends on the moment, John.
I guess it's
And the air conditioning is running, so.
So we're
Noisy.
just a single family residence and associated improvements on vacant property, 5.3 acres. I think it's fair to say, if you'll tell me if I'm putting words in your mouth, all of you. I think it's fair to say that the response that we had the last time was generally favorable. The board did want to see some drone shots to show how the visibility issued from neighboring properties. We did submit them on September 12th, and we're here to talk about that, go through them and see if you have any other questions.
I can hear none of it. Back again, John said. If you could just go to the next slide, you can see the four kind of views in the four different cardinal directions. The one on the top left is looking north across Pheasant's Crossing towards the neighbor. The one on the right looks directly south at the neighbor across Potato Road. And then the one on the bottom left is to the east, and the one on the bottom right is looking towards the west.
For 20 feet, right?
These were taken at the height of the second floor, which I believe is 18.6.
Okay.
18.6.
I think it's listed on the.
If I may, just interjecting, 18, John Bennett, 18'6", and these are not constructs of with the landscaping plan, these are the existing.
Right.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you'd be a 7-foot person to see, because they're actually taking a little higher up in the house.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions on anything else? That's what we're here for.
just curious if you have any renderings to show us?
Yes, they were included in the last presentation.
Oh,
You were at the last presentation, yes.
I believe there are pages 6 onwards.
Do we wanna go over our comments from last week?
Well, we asked them for term tracks. We didn't have a lot of,
That was it.
other things that came out of the requirements. Is that outside of the term tracks, the requirements? It's a relatively positive review. Keep in mind that some of the perspectives that you are seeing do not include the plans for existing edge of the property plans and so forth. Those
That's-
are depicted with the lines in them, and that would be what the proposed vegetation would be blocking. So you would, although this is an idea of what the light emission would be, the line indicates how much would be covered by the proposed plantings with the existing plantings.
The existing hedgerow, which is on
The head-
here,
And the hedgerow is going to stay.
correct, it's not on our property.
The
in
material,
the summertime. Not in the wintertime.
It's
Yeah.
pretty stable.
Like 10 months.
And this is also,
Until it's not, right,
Well,
until the month. where you
Melissa
continue
is
to
on the call, can speak to if you're interested in the exact composition of the hedge.
actually, if we can put on the landscape plan too, that might be also show how it says it.
But just for the record, there's certainly months of any area that you can see right through.
But,
Privet is only,
no, understood, I'm trying to get the landscape, and what we did is we stripped out most of the vegetation, so you could see only the architecture. Melissa, you wanna go over that with the landscape?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time hearing exactly what the question is, but is it what the existing material or vegetation is along that southern property line?
There's some discussion about what it look like in the winter.
Yeah, so it is a fairly densely vegetated existing condition there, and while the majority of it is a combination of privet, there are some cedars mixed in there. The majority of it is deciduous, but it is so thick and dense that it does provide quite a bit of screening even in winter months. And then, of course, on our side of that line, we are putting in a lot of additional planting there. We have kind of a mixed hedgerow of viburnum, some additional privet, and then we have a lot of trees going in as well. So it'll be a pretty dense mix, even if the majority of it is not evergreen.
And when we showed the renderings, I think the renderings, we turned off that layer and just showed the house. You can see the distance. So all these trees in the bottom are not shown on that between the privet and the house.
just wanna bring up the fact that, in the last application, we commented on the fact that it was more stone and stucco and not a lot of wood or wood similar materials. I did not say this the last time, and I felt like I should have, so I'm gonna say it now, which is that although I love this, I love the limestone, I love the texture, and I love straight paneling, stone, and I love the large amount of concrete between the stones, so that's why I was hesitant to say anything, but there is no wood on here at all, and I'm just gonna throw it out there at the board and
So it's something we've thought about quite a lot, and you know, there are two kind of points for us that were points of inspiration. One is, of course, we discussed the last time that, the sand, the local context was a direct inspiration. Then also we looked at, there are two kind of interesting things. One is that the geological event that most kind of affected the land surface of Long Island is this advance of a massive ice sheet, glacier, which deposited the stone moraine of fieldstone all through this area. So that's one, that's an interesting thing. But then the other thing that we thought was really interesting and relevant is that local farmers often stacked up these stones, whether pulling them out of their fields to define the borders of their properties, of their fields. So in that sense, I totally agree with you that the last couple of centuries has typically seen wooden construction. We're not trying to do that, but we are drawing inspiration heavily from the context. That so.
I mean, I very much appreciate the new perspective. I do, and the thoughtfulness behind it.
There's another issue, which is that our clients wanted a lower maintenance house, and that this is right on the beach, and the wood requires a huge amount of maintenance to upkeep. But the interiors of the house are very, very richly clad in wood. So what you're not getting in these images, because we hadn't established our ceiling materials at the time, but there'll be a very warm glow from the wood ceilings and the wood materials of the interior on this house. So.
May I ask who's
From-
speaking, please?
Mark Turkel.
Oh, hi.
I'm sorry, what's his name?
Mark Turkel, MARCTURK, yeah, from the US.
Yeah, I mean, just to those earlier comments, I think the beach certainly has connection to this, but there really aren't stacked stone walls. Tom's family has been farmers here for many years, and there just aren't. My father lives in Stonington, there's plenty of it there, but it just doesn't occur here that I know of. There are, random glacial events. The littoral region and the way that Long Island was formed is an interesting historic perspective. But the reality is that the pinkish warm glow of these beautiful materials are really not indigenous at all here. And although I agree with Megan, they're beautiful, they're just not, they're more contextually based in Miami or, southern places where stucco and concrete are generally more consistent. So I think just one typical perspective is that we're going to screen the sides so you're not going to see the house. When storms happen, and you can see right through privet unless it's 3 or 4 layers of it. So I'd rather just address what we have and just be aware that neighbors and in general, I'm a big proponent of materials that last, and I just think that we should just notice that this material is completely formed. And although beautiful, I just wonder if you could look at other materials that might make more sense in the context.
Usually the stone that we would find down here is actually ballast rock that was unloaded off the boats when they came down to Sag Harbor and Mike. But it's a whole different story than Connecticut and New England. The strange thing about the 2 forks, North Fork is all sand, much better wine country. Down here you have all the rich loam, which holds all the moisture, so it's a whole different conversation between the 2 movements of the glacier too. So, but very rarely would you find any stone down here. Most of even Michael Church foundations were ballast rock that were offloaded and then became foundations.
Stonington was a sister city to Sag Harbor. So Stonington had plenty of rock, so they would literally ship through the ballast in order, when they were bringing the goods over, they needed something to hold the ships stable. So I just think it's a beautiful house with beautiful materials. I just don't find the context relevant.
I think my response would be that we're not, I think your points are really valid and absolutely true. We're not claiming that we're using a local material. It's more about like a thematic idea that we're trying to kind of get this feeling that these materials have risen out of the sand, even if they actually are, coming from further afield, That's just given the realities of how things are built. So it's a kind of idea more than, a practical thing.
Dr. Miron did a study for the original parish, and their end result, which unfortunately wasn't realized, was to take precast walls made from loam and sand and rough aggregate, and then basically created an exterior of that material, but that actually was indigenous. The concept was realized through real context. So I think overall this is a beige to mod coloration, again, of beautiful materials. But if we look at context, it's just there was nothing like this here, and so I'd rather just approach it that way, and say that again the forms are beautiful, the vocabulary, the geometry. I just wonder if you could play with other materials.
Just to clarify, hi, this is Mark again over here. It's a little bit difficult to hear, but I just want to make sure I understand. Are you more, because the underlying rock of the area and all of the old stone buildings of Long Island, including in the South Fork, drew from a series of different stone and rock sources. Are you more predisposed to the contextual fieldstone of the kind of Connecticut gray granite, and that are you saying that's a little bit more indigenous than a warmer limestone, or I'm just want to understand?
I think it's the stone in general. I think it's not the color of the stone. I love limestone. It's beautiful.
I mean, none of it is indigenous.
Right.
Let's just be realistic. None of it is indigenous. Glacial erratics are a different thing. I'm just trying to, in a relative way, look at the vocabulary and conflict it to what we've seen as people who live here for a very long time. And I'm talking more about other people. I've only been here since the last 20, 30 years. And I think that it is foreign, and it's okay to say it's foreign, but it doesn't actually have context. So I personally would like to see perhaps a mix of things. Our last applicant had pure stucco, metal roof, solar panels, glass, and a very small fraction of wood. And even though the wood was plastic, I think it would last as a wood-like veneer. So again, beautiful building, beautiful materials. I just don't see the context.
I just want to.
So we're saying the addition of wood perhaps would make the board more comfortable, or we're saying different stone. I just want to make sure we can action this appropriately.
Our role is not to give the materials or suggest the design. It's merely to react to what we see. So I think we're just trying to be clear that, again, we appreciate what you're doing and we would just like to see more context. It would literally be a 5-minute drive around the neighborhood or looking at previous applications. There are other houses, one by the Marina, for example, of large-scale houses of this type that were approved, and I would suggest looking into those files, looking at those houses that were approved.
I just want to try to figure out exactly what some of the concerns are. I'm trying to put them on. I know you make suggestions, but you don't have the ultimate design. You don't draw the house for us. So, as someone who has lived here for generations, I will tell you that probably one of the most pleasant homes I'm aware of, it's about 100 years old. It's the Lucian Ting House on the west side of Neck Lane in the village of Southampton. It's one of the first international, if not the first international style houses built in the United States. And that house is devoid of any wood trim. Has softness. It's very surprising. One of my favorite things to do is to try people buy that house and ask them when I said, when do you think this house was built? And they say 1960, 1965, 1960, something. The house was built in 1920. Which continued with the house across the street called Four Fountains, which Brown design, which unfortunately was raised. But the international style house, which you'll find in quite a bit of architectural historical is here. It is an East End landmark. It's contributing structure. All of which is to say that contemporary, in this case, international style house, which is of course on the forefront of contemporary design, exists without wood treatments. I just want to make sure that if we come back to you with something that is devoid of any sort of wood, is that going to be something that you're going to say you weren't listening to? That's all. I just being very, very frank about
Right.
it.
Also,
Just let me get an answer to it.
Yeah.
Because that was a long question, and I just want to know if you can.
Oh, Southampton is not Sagapon.
No, I know that.
So, and I would say, I don't know what else other than wood. Or, I mean, it looks like wood.
Okay.
I wonder if mod is perhaps not the tone that reminds us of anything historical or even of that period. I mean, these are mod tones, unless it's a coloration issue within the printing. I think gray tones are typically more in this area. If you look at just outside, the red cedar and the white cedar tend to go gray. So I think it's coloration, but I don't think we can reference something without seeing it, first of all, and another district in a different village. But I understand what a modernist period is, and certainly there's a time and place for things, but currently I wouldn't say we pass with this application.
Would it be helpful? I think we've pulled up the project you referenced. I think the Peter Marino Sagaponic residence. We have it on our screen here. We're very grateful to you for drawing our attention to this project. How, just from your feedback, are we to learn from this? What is its lesson for us in terms of relevance? It has no, it's all stone with no wood, and it's a non-contextual European limestone.
Yeah, so I would first of all say, I think I was the only member of the board at that time. I don't think Tom was involved with the period. So each board has a different opinion than of whatever time period. I'm just saying, if you check the reference of, say, 10 important buildings that were all passed by the current Sagaponic board, and look at the wealth of materials, including that project, because that limestone has a gray tonality, not a beige or a mauve tonality, that I think you'd find more of a palette to choose from. That was a comment.
Can I just make Leroy Street, which architects here also do 511 games, which is just like a hop, skip, and jump at the end. One of the questions that came up, it was a little modern and everything, is the fact that with the distance away from the street. I know, Nick, you weren't here at the first meeting, but both Pheasants Crossing, which this property is on, and Potato Road are private roads. So really, nobody else, unfortunately, is going to see it, because I think it's beautiful also. The other thing is, this house is a flat roof structure, so it's only 25 feet in height, and it's only a partial second floor. So I hear where you're coming from, and I think we can work on colors, but I think this board really, I was pleasantly surprised that the board really positively and favorably appreciated this property, this project last time, and to ask the architects to go back to the drawing board when I think it was done very thoughtfully. And I think we have the material board still out here, we can bring it in again. If we're talking about changing more to a gray, I think we can do that, but this is not, I think it's, it's a different type of house than even what you had before in the last application, being that it's not in the public purview, it's set back, it's on a vacant lot. And it's, gonna be, and it's only gonna be at a maximum height 25 for partial second floor.
I think the goal is to have enough votes to pass, and
Yes.
I'm trying to help with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we appreciate, you know, your essential point that this is not a super contextual building, and it should be evaluated as such. So we can totally agree with that. And also wheel in the sample if you.
No, I think
Mark, do you need any other information from the board to help you think about this? Mark?
Yeah, I just, I think everybody saw the original presentation, except maybe one board member for whom this is the first time you weren't party to our first presentation. One of the arguments which we developed was that, you know, we actually went to the site and found, you know, the local sand, and really took a lot of time to bring that sand element into the project. We actually had a sample of that with us when we were there. And that's, you know, that's one notion of contextual, you know, architecture. But I'm not sure that point was clearly made today. So if that, I don't know if that figures in or not, I just wanted to make sure that was articulated. That's where the color came from as opposed to the gray. So
Color, it's not the color, it's the lack of.
Just for the board,
that's for me, not the color.
just for the board's consideration, looking at the code, looking at what we have in front of us, we have very, very, very broad discretion as to what we can look at in terms of design, in terms of visual offensiveness. Nothing particularly constrains us to looking at the historical accuracy of the design. The language is even so broad as to complement and enhance the natural beauty of the site in regard to the landscape, topography, surrounding structures, and the scenic character of the roadway is visible from said roadway. So we don't need to necessarily put blinders on as to historicity, as to a particular color. We can look at things with a broader eye. I guess one of the things I would mention also is we're very proud of the home, it's a beautiful home, but in terms of impact, it is on a very long private road. So for example, you know, it's a little bit of apples and oranges, but if this house was ever considered, house on that road was ever considered to be contributing to structure in a historic district or something like that, in jurisdiction. And that goes into the fact that what impact it has on the character of the neighborhood, what impact it has for as a public view shed for a sense of place of the neighborhood. I will say that you know, it ain't over till it's over. Clearly, we're all adults and been doing this for years and know that, but I'm surprised. Seems to be a little bit of a change. I mean, we got nothing but very laudatory, like surprisingly laudatory comments on the first round, and I was hoping that some of that was viewed as an objectively, a look at a design that is objectively, to say the least. But when you add on that the lack of visibility and the fact that it's on a private road and the fact that it is going to be significantly buffered in addition to what is there now, I would hope that would be sort of the tipping factor so that you wouldn't be as concerned about different material elements. I'm trying to persuade you to approve the house as it is. I think it's a good.
We understand that's your job.
Excuse me?
We understand that's your job.
Yeah, no.
Yes.
But,
Your point
I
is
think
well
I'm doing
taken. Nick was not here last month and did not have an opportunity to lend his architectural concepts with it. And also we discussed that we had not applied some of the observation of materials to yours following the next application that we reviewed last month. So we're just kind of rehashing some of those thoughts back and forth. And I think if you'll give some credence to thinking about some options with that, and we can digest it a little bit further. But I think at the moment, you might not have a strong vote for approval. So let us digest it
Yeah, I think-
and just see if you can come up with some coordinating of concepts a little bit.
Materials, correct?
Yeah. Very good.
That's very fair, and I do want to add something, one thing that I've been saying this to boards, and I'll be very candid with you. I've been saying this to boards with the exception of certain boards in the village of Southampton. I've been saying this to boards that I've appeared for. Because I want to thank, it's always intelligent, well thought out, and a lot of mutual respect. So that means the world, because that's all as a practitioner you can ask for in the peer review board. And I thank each of one of you for that, and thank council for that, and I thank staff for that.
I might also add, when you are doing something so bold and beautiful and new as this, right? I think it just takes a little time to for not only the neighborhood and but the board to just kind of open their minds up a little bit, and I love to break them all. I love to break the rules, and I love to break the rules. I'm sitting on this side of the board right now. And I just have to kind of think about the greater Sagaponic vibe.
I think it's very thoughtful to the landscape and the herbs, everything. I mean, I personally like it very much. Thank you.
We'll thank you for all your thoughts.
If you could look at some of your glazing percentages and just also entertain a little bit of that sense. I realized that your colleague there was talking about the height of the glass and so forth. But a lot of this is 40, close to 40, both the west and south. And I understand the south, everybody wants a lot of glass towards the ocean. But just think about that a little bit.
I think there were a few things we looked at quite carefully with the glazing. One was that the more glazed facades of the house, the south and the west, are kind of facing into the garden and away from the neighbors. So we really were very careful about breaking up the glazing on the ground floor facing outward, and then minimizing it on the second floor. Which, I mean, of course, the elevations aren't, as, explanatory perhaps as the renderings are in that regard.
And the overhangs.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah, we
largely,
have, like,
which
deep
we went into with the
overhangs.
last
Yeah,
meeting.
thank you.
But we can look,
The other thing about the glazing is that the instance when you view the house from either the north or the south, the instances where you have glass on both sides of the building reads completely black at night. Because there's no place for the light to reflect, there are no walls to reflect off of. And so even if it's lit from inside, from the outside it reads as black.
Is the basement an engineered basement?
Yeah. I
I'm just curious with the water table.
Oh, it's outside the water table. Where
Pat, when was the next one?
What's the date?
23rd, October 23rd.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tom,
I had a feeling. Motion to adjourn? Second? Oh, okay.
23, thank you, see you then.
Oh, you remember? Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm short.
Oh.
I don't know.
Not that short.
Take it.
Yeah.
So, we have again another resolution, but we'll look at that now. It's coming back, so. So on the demo for 1.6, town line, we're also asked to vote on a resolution accepting the secret. Sorry, yea or nay on the resolution?
For this one?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like just.
Well, it's just a demo.
Yeah. So,
Would you like my?
No. We're okay. Is that a yea?
Yeah.
Okay. Megan? It's another sequence. On the demo.
Sure. What's that?
We're demoing,
Yes, yeah,
okay, it's just the resolution
Yeah.
on the paperwork, we're not,
yeah.
okay, very good. Thank you.
Did anybody make a motion?
On this, yeah, no, I've taken the votes on each of them,
So everybody's for it?
yes.
Yes.
And just so the board notes, that's both to accept lead agency for secret and to do a negative declaration.
Right. So I can go back to the, and now we're on a discussion of the discussion on the demo. 116. There's a series of these small lots there. Exactly how close is this to the street?
It's about 24 feet from the front property line.
Right, yeah, it's pretty tight. And I'm sorry, your name and
My name is Rob Marks. I'm an architect.
Rob Marcus.
And Roger Harrison Partners. Would you like me to give a little background?
Yes, that might be helpful.
So I'm here today representing our client with an application for demolition of the cottage at 116 Town Line Road. The existing structure measures 1,050 square feet. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, single-family residence. Clad in cedar shingles, it's 1 story tall with vaulted ceilings. There's no basement and no attic. There was an inquiry about the history of the house. The history of the house is a little less certain. We know that the lot was created by subdivision in 1924. An aerial photo from the Southampton GIS indicates that there was no house on this property in 1930. The house appears to be present in the next available GIS photo, which is 1962. We believe the house was built prior to 1957, likely in the early 1950s, and was renovated in 1992 and again in 2016. The oldest certificate of compliance on file with the village is for a greenhouse addition in 1992. Prior to that addition, the house measured 875 square feet. We know the greenhouse addition was subsequently framed in and shingled in 2016. Our office did that work. Neither the deed nor the title report provide any more detail about the date of construction or the builder. It is unlikely that there was an architect associated with the original design. Without original drawings or permit history, we were not able to identify the builder. As just mentioned, the existing house is about 24 feet from the front property line, which means the house and the terrace behind the house are located entirely in the required front yard setback. The house violates both the front and side yard setback, the current front and side yard setback requirements in the pyramid rule. Have a graphic showing that. The red area is the red box in the center of the property here. That's the buildable area with it respecting the setbacks. This is the existing house and the rear terrace. It is not possible to add on to the house without significantly increasing the existing nonconformities. We did explore that, ways to add on to the house, extend the house, but all of those increase significantly the nonconformities. So we've come up with a design, an as-of-right design to build a new house within the building setbacks compliant with the pyramid rule, and you're seeking approval for demolition of the original cottage to do that work.
I believe the original subdivision came out of the Babinski family in Sagaponic. Having spoken to the granddaughter just last week about this,
It's might have been Dr.
I'm sorry?
I think this was Dr. IOS, if it's south of Daniels Lane.
This is Town Line Road, and this is actually a double lot. This lot is 80 feet wide. The original lot's 40 feet.
I think this was Hampton Home Place, the Dr. Hess.
That's what it is, yes.
Hampton Home Place?
Yes.
So the curious thing is that it's just one of these remarkable cottages there, which is the old vernacular, the old language, and part of the charm of all of that area. One of the earliest cottages along through Sagaponic was built by my grandfather for a fellow who was associated with public television and the birth of, not television, but public radio also, and so forth. So anyway, it's one of those particularly unique spots. And there's, if you go down through that area, there have been some major changes, and then every once in a while, there's one of these remarkable cottages that is still left.
Very charming area. Because of that. This
Yes.
house like this.
Yeah. Mhm. So part of me wants to, would like to see the existing structure realigned and somehow made into something that would be conforming, just for its simple charm. But I don't, as I say, I understand where you're going with it, but I don't know how the rest of the board feels about such a thing.
Is there a way to see the new drawings for the next application before we decide on this? Maybe it looks exactly the same and it's just pushed back on the street.
It doesn't look anything like the same.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's on the drive, but we don't
Well,
usually.
we should be mindful, they're two separate applications overall.
I know.
Right, yeah.
We are discussing the tear down of a building which we
Usually we
determined
don't.
doesn't have environmental
Right.
concerns. And it's not, at least in the spirit of the Sagaponic Village Code, a historic structure.
I actually, it might be,
It looks
considering the
historic.
date,
We say prior to 19.
15, 2 or so, what's the projected, 57? Likely built in the 50s, yeah.
What are the parameters for that historic?
Usually 100 years old, right?
I don't know, John, what's your sense of that?
The code gives you broad discretion as far as
Right,
whether you
yeah.
can be a contributing house or a historical.
Right, it certainly is contributing. However, there has been so many changes in that particular area, it's just one of those things.
Has
that
there
we
been
can
any
like
thought to use it as a pool house or anything of that nature by the client?
The property is so tiny, and if we moved it, we couldn't build any, I mean, it would fill nearly half the area. I mean, it's really, actually, the accessory structure, the allowable accessory structure area with the 30-foot setbacks on an 80-foot lot is smaller than that house. We only have a 20-foot sliver. I will never, it's just not, the scale of the property doesn't
Do
support
you think the
that.
zoning board would allow us, if we found it was historic, the zoning board would allow us to get a variance for it?
We could encourage such an
Um,
idea.
I would definitely be into non-conforming if it included this, keeping this general look and feel from the street.
It sounds like it's time consuming.
The zoning board doesn't necessarily have to follow it, but that being said, there's nothing prohibiting us from sending comments to zoning board.
I think it'd be worth an inquiry. I just don't know about the appetite your client has for such a time.
We spent a year, more than a year getting here. We got the Suffolk County Health for approval for a new house with the new location. If
I think
does the town want the house? Can it could be rolled off the site and put on a public land? I mean, if it's that valuable to the community. But it's really hard to do anything on this 80-foot wide piece of property with that structure on it. And we did look at it, but it's really
What was the square
quite a
footage?
needle to thread.
What was the square footage?
It was 875 square feet. The element on the right side, and that piece right there where the roof comes right down on top of those two windows on the right side, that was a later greenhouse addition. That's not original. If you take that off, the original house is 875 square feet.
But it looks like it would clear an electric line. Right, if you put it on a flatbed.
Yeah, it's a small house. It's allowed we could, and
Would they be interested in donating?
oh yeah, I'm sure he would allow the village to move it.
You know, what's involved with that, but I think we could put up some feelers.
The village, the board of trustees would have to vote to take the dwelling itself as real property, if the village so wanted to purchase it.
what would be probably put out for purchase.
Even if it was a dollar.
Yeah. It's
But they'd also have to approve the moving of it.
Mhm.
So what's the height of the top of the ridge? 16.
It's in that area, 16 to 18 feet.
And the bottom of the electric line is about that. So you have to add the 3 feet for the flatbed. What's the date of this structure?
So prior to
Yes, in the
1950s, in the 1950s.
And what's the condition of the building?
It's in good condition. He renovated it a few years ago.
It's platform frame?
It's,
No, no,
Is
it's staggered.
I think so. From the 50s, it would be platform frame, not balloon frame, and yeah. I'm guessing this is post-war.
There are definitely places and people that would be interested in it, I think, only because it has
that charm.
It has this historic charm, and there's.
But I think that charm belongs on that street, you know?
I mean, I think think that is to say that, but what he's saying is true, is that without a variance, there's no architecture to be performed. If you look at that red rectangle there, it's taking half of it at least.
Yeah.
When's the last time Sagaponic allowed for a good house size move?
Not that one.
Just a quick question also. I know some of these properties, there's a paper road running behind them. Is this abandoned, if I may?
The paper road is abandoned.
Okay.
This site plan includes.
Yes, Sagaponic Street abandoned.
It's abandoned and this was incorporated.
Understood.
And this building envelope includes the.
I see. Just to know what you
Yeah,
were,
includes the credit.
the hand that you were dealt in terms of size.
John, what's the process to move a building within Sagaponic right now?
Just needs a home. Actually, in this same subdivision, there's one of our residents, Mr. Crane. He built a new house in the back, and he actually, somebody bought for $1 the cottage that they were going to demolish and moved it into wainscot.
That would be my proposal. Is to not approve the demo, but approve the removal. As a first step. You have to investigate it and look at it. I mean, there's two people I'm taking it right off the bat.
I don't know, I just hesitant to let go of that vibe on the street so close to the, I like that it's close to the road because of the house that it is.
But I don't know that we have the jurisdiction to say that it's historic without the basis.
We have the jurisdiction to consider it. The code is kind of broad here. Let's see. In considering an application seeking demolition, the board shall consider the historical and architectural value and significance of the building or structure, whether the building or structure contributes to the character of the village in any unique or special manner, the extent that the neglect of maintenance, if any, may have contributed to the condition of the building, and whether the demolition or removal will cause substantial detriment to the public welfare or a substantial deviation from the purpose and intent of this article. To the extent applicable, the board shall consider the criteria and standards of the Secretary of the Interior's standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings as amended as a reference.
I hear everything that you're saying, and I understand the charm of the pre-war lots and the pre-war houses, but it's not landmarked by, it's not a medallion house, it's not historic. I'm probably older than that house is.
But I'd like to at least request buying sometimes investigate it, okay? So, if it's a straw vote to do that.
Well, so I think there's three different options. I'm just thinking, if I'm the architect of this project, I'm working year on. The client bought this parcel in the house for quite a bit. And they hired a notable firm to manage it. The three different options that I've seen in this village work quite effectively at is one, to obtain some kind of a variance to keep it, which would mean the changing of the lot setbacks to enlarge the building envelope. Two would be to keep it within the architecture, which I think is quite difficult without a variance. And the third is to relocate the building. Those are our only options. I think we're asking for time to find that.
That said,
We've explored the first
okay.
two, it's really hard.
Right.
We did try that, we looked at that, so then I'm sure he would have no problem giving the house away. If the village is interested, if there's a piece of public land or even a private, anybody who would want.
So what I'm saying is, let us adjourn this demo and we will look at the new construction and start that conversation.
Okay.
Okay. So that's what I'm.
Would you be
proposing.
willing to consent to such an adjournment?
What, I guess, the concern is not the process, and I would love as much as you to see somebody find a good home for this college. My concern is the uncertainty about time. If it's going to take a year to find a home for the house, that
it would take that long.
It was just reshingled, right? This is just reshingled.
Yeah. Yeah, it's in pristine condition, it's been fixed up, so.
I think that it wouldn't be that difficult. It's just sitting on a crawl space or on a slab.
Prospects, if you don't feel basement.
That's even easier.
Yeah. Yep.
John, to your knowledge, would there be any holdups with this?
I don't would, it would just simply depend on how long it would take to find a place to be located. I mean, the village doesn't have a public plan, so it would have to go to some other private citizen or something like that. I see the variance that would be necessary if you wanted to maintain that and still afford the property owner to build the other structure that they're looking for, is gonna be an FAR variance. But you could easily pick that sucker up, you could put a full basement under it, connect it by a tunnel to the finished basement that's under the new structure, and your client would actually gain an awful lot of square footage and satisfy the board.
Well, we also have to keep in mind, if the concept was for the village to purchase the house, we would need to work through the board of trustees, and I can't speak for them, and none of us, I think, here has our finger on the pulse of how they would react to that, because as Mr. Woodsman says, where are we going to move it? How are we going to facilitate that? And we have no jurisdiction to force the applicant to put the house up for sale or to talk to private parties.
But we're working on it. We're just
It seems that your client would be, would approve, let's say today I found someone who wanted it.
Yeah.
That they would be, approve that.
Yeah.
It seems to be the best bet, because you've already challenged and explored the other two, as you said.
Emily, any thoughts?
No.
Okay.
I just feel strongly about keeping it where it is, not necessarily saving it all together.
Yeah, no, I understand your point. Like I say, he's heard where we're coming from at this point.
We don't know.
We know where we'd like to investigate into the.
Yeah, but I mean, I, from my perspective, I don't think that just saving this house and moving it elsewhere really solves the 116 Town Line Road
No, I know.
problem, which is the charm from that
Right,
particular.
right. And we'll get to that as we start our conversation about what's proposed as well. So what I'd like to do is put up a motion that we would adjourn the demo for the purposes of trying to preserve, relocate, or simply save the structure and start conversations working on that. And so we revisit this next month, and we would take a look at the new proposed structure.
Okay.
Is that all right? Okay. So a motion for that? Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we'll just move on to your next proposal.
For the memo.
You need all these papers?
Well, I was gonna put it back so you could have them next month, or you want to keep them?
I mean,
I do.
yeah, I would like to do that.
I think I left mine up there.
I do.
Nick, are you keeping yours?
Yes.
Okay.
exactly who is the property owner?
Sorry?
Who is the property owner on this? I just have your name as the architect, but I don't have the.
Well, the owner is 116 Downline LLC. Sorry, I'm old school, I grunt boards, but last time I was here, you didn't have dual monitors, so I guess.
We appreciate the preparedness.
So my name again is Rob Marks. I'm an architect with Roger Ferris and Heath Partners, and I'm here representing our client with an application for a new 3-bedroom, single-family residence at 116 Town Line Road. We've already talked about the context of the existing house and our attempt to work with it. This presentation is, well, let me talk a little bit about the site since we have these boards. So as discussed, the existing house is right up against the street. It's a 80-foot wide lot. And the photos and the images that we sent you give you context for that. The other houses on the street are also smaller, although this is smaller than all the others. Our proposal is to build a new single-story, respecting, our attempt has been recognizing the scale, the diminutive scale of the houses from the 1950s. Our design respects the scale of the property. This is a single-story house. It's rotated so that the narrow end of the house faces the street, so it presents a very small elevation to the street, and it's centered in the street. Rather centered on the lot. These are Google aerial images. There is a new 2-story house on the adjacent property to the south. Very close to the property line, 3 feet from the property line. There's a massive hedge on this side property line on the rear. We're proposing to pull the house back, centered in the property, narrow end to the street. So this is the view from the street. This is a 3-quarter view closer to the house. The house is rectangular in plan with 2 projecting bays and 2 covered terraces recessed into the building form. The hipped roof, the chimneys, the walls are all clad in a light gray terracotta shingle, evoking the scale, pattern, and color of weathered gray cedar shingles characteristic of the area. All the windows are double hung. Arrayed either singly or in pairs. The 3 sets of exterior doors are also wood. All doors and windows are painted a neutral weathered gray color like the shingles. We have provided calculations. So that's the northeast view. This is the northwest view. In the package that we've given you, we've provided calculations showing the percentage of surface area of glass, which is 14%. This is a much smaller house, a more traditional house than the 2 houses that you just looked at. It doesn't face the ocean, doesn't face a pond, and it doesn't face a large piece of property. It has small windows punched in the
Just for clarification, Bob, this particular view that you're using, this parking area belongs to the neighbors.
Yeah. The house, the lot is so narrow to get a three-quarter view, we had to look across the adjacent property.
I understand, I just want to.
Yeah,
that-
yes, that's,
Thank you.
that's. So the total surface area of glass on all four sides is 14% of the wall area. And we've done a photometric study showing that the light projection from the exterior lights provides no light trespassing to property lines. Terraces and sidewalks are neutral. We propose a neutral grade natural stone, and the driveway would be an impervious crushed stone.
Is there a reason that the driveway extends the entire length of the lot?
Yes, it's to, because we're not, zoning doesn't allow you to have your only, you can have guest parking in the front yard, but you can't have your only required parking in the front yard, so the drive extends past the house, so the cars can be behind the house, or along the side of the house.
I see.
And it's all same material?
Yes. It's a, like, the theory is like the original shingle style where the shingle was wallpaper and covered every surface, all the roofs, the gambrel roofs, the gable ends, the walls, the indentations in the eroding the main form with covered porches. So the roof and the chimney and the walls are all clad in the same material.
And what's the height of the building? $27, the two? It's 18 to the top of it. 16.
It's probably 18 feet to the top of the roof.
Well, but rooms are on the second floor.
There's no room for a second floor.
I think it's a very modest, elegant building.
It's not the original cottage, but it's trying to be modest and contextual, but bigger.
There's a guy. $220 and $216.
It's 20 feet with the chimney, I think. So the chimney is about 4 feet tall? Sound like
Yeah,
proper
that's,
scale?
yeah, sounds about right, yeah.
And the windows are aluminum?
No, they're wood. They're wood. Double hung with windows and wood doors.
Sorry, I don't feel that this house has enough interest to, or is adding anything to Sagaponic after you're subtracting the charm of the house that is being removed. I'm sorry.
We need to make sure that we keep the applications distinct, and we're going to discuss the existing dwelling as part of our review of the demo app, we need to look at this with our unjaundiced
Understood. I'm looking at a wall with a roof that looks like a Pizza Hut, and I really don't feel like that adds any value or charm. It looks and feels like Sagaphonic.
I can see your perspective.
There's not a door, there's not anything warm and welcoming about it.
Well, it's all wood that'll all go to clear cedar, which will be solar. Which
Well,
is,
is it ceramic?
No, I just mean there's nothing inviting about it.
oh, it's a one-story, small-scale structure.
Yeah, and the house before it did a good job of it.
But we can't compare
So
the
I'm-
two. We can't compare the two. The windows and door openings are equal scale to the period. The roof is a chamfered, gabled roof, essentially, just chamfered on both sides. And it's very in scale with original colonial architecture. So I don't think it needs any more to be in context.
Certainly, slightly different language.
I mean, it's much more naturally connected than the previous application by far, either of the two previous applications. Adding stone and pressed concrete and limestone have nothing to do with what has happened in the past. This has everything to do with what's happening in the past.
Is there any proposed landscaping that would soften the appearance of this?
We don't have a landscape plan yet. We've been using a Justice juniper in the front yard to screen. We're thinking of that, and the existing hedges on the south and the west side would remain. Those are shared by the neighbor and our client, because the neighbor's house again is right on the property line, so that's heavily screened. There'll be something that's more natural and beach-like. This is up about a quarter of a mile from the beach, something like the Justice juniper, which is a really nice windswept look. And several of these will be placed around the yard just to create a foreground and layering between the street and the house, and a little bit of privacy.
Any thoughts?
So this isn't a house that's attached to the other house, the pink pool house?
No.
They're separate pieces of property.
They're separate pieces of property.
And where is the turnaround for at the end of the driveway on here? Is there?
Don't think there is one.
Okay.
It looks like it's a kind of pivot style.
Is this package of drawings in your?
Yes.
So there's a site plan SP 100 that shows the turnaround at the back.
And we don't have terribly much jurisdiction over driveways.
I was just curious. I see it here. Okay.
Okay. Are you willing to develop some thought to softening some of that? What some people are feeling is a bit of a stark street view, yeah. It might be something to just spend a little time on thinking how to soften that a little bit. If there is a way, or dwelling a little bit of time on landscape idea.
I just think we should consider scale here for a minute.
Mhm.
They have the ability, if they wanted to add another floor to the structure. This is a very modest, I mean, it's 11 feet from the ground to the top of the structure. The chamfered roof is centrally located with what looks like about 15 feet from it. It's a very modest request. And if you look at the previous two applications, did you see the layout of the basement of the Leroy Studio house? There was every known to man kind of scope in that structure. It's not a house like at all.
Cedar,
It's a different kind of commercial application, really. And this is a very modest, small, low, with small opening application. I just don't see how we can ask for anything softer, in my opinion.
They're just looking at a wall with 3 windows on it.
Well,
There's-
we're showing the building, we can soften that with plantings, the part of the grand view
Part of
that
what we're
the
supposed to
existing
be able to
cottage is
see.
charming, because it expresses a gable end and a chimney to the street, but it's also completely planted out, it's like a forest, the way it's all greenscape around it. If we do the same thing with the new house, if we push that back and do these junipers along that wall, the house will almost go away. It'll be 100 feet from the street instead of 24.
Just to give a sense of scale, though, it's 34 feet plus 6 feet, so it's 40 feet. If we go to almost any house in Sagaponic, it's 4, 5, 6, 7 times that size. This is a very small structure. This structure, John, what do you think the width is of this structure, the new addition?
Probably 26, 28 feet.
Right, so just think about that. He has on this elevation 3 sets of windows on a structure that's only 8 feet wider than this. It's just a very small, modest structure. I think we should just consider that. And the roof is set back, and it's also chamfered. So scale to me is incredibly important. If you look at, say, this application, which is this Wainscott Harbor Road, this piece, this small gable end, when you're looking at the front page, is larger than this application.
Right.
It's just a whole different animal, and I think we should at least try to get a sense of the
What we're doing is
scale.
we're just looking at this one house. Not comparing it to all the other ones that have much more land and are in a different place. I mean, Wainscott Harbor is not, not necessarily right by the ocean on this quaint little street, right? So,
Maybe if you saw it with vegetation and planting, that would
I
help.
think that we're talking about the structure itself. so
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Again, it's time to digest this.
Right.
And
I'm still traumatized by the pizza comment. It is,
I apologize
it's
for that.
It's not a red
It's not.
enameled roof. It's very muted and soft colors. It's the gable and the hip are the 2 primordial roof forms. I mean, it's one or the other. If we don't have a flat roof, we're either going to have a gable or a hip. And
But I mean, you don't even, you don't see the front door, everything is like.
I hear you on that, and that's a function of the narrow site. One of the first things that we figured out in studying this, we'd like to have the front door facing the street, but because the house is turned sideways, it's the planning of that. You really want to come into the middle of the house, just like with a traditional colonial house, a center hall colonial. You come in the middle. You always come in on the center axis of the structure, and then a plan flows from the center. Either there's a center hall flanking rooms, or there's a center space with subordinate spaces around it. And that's the way this plan worked out, and that was the way to keep the plan and the form and the organization of the interior as simple as possible. Unfortunately, it does mean the side door is on the side, and you have to come around the house to discover it, but that's what makes the plan work. And I hear you. I think the response would be to landscape the front so that you have a green sward and that you come around and discover the house. But for the purposes of the presentation, we wanted to show you the structure not concealed by the vegetation.
Again, I think give us some time to digest it. We can go out to the site, maybe walk it and get a better feel for the setback that's proposed. And
Do you have a landscape plan?
I do not have a landscape
I
plan.
think it would be helpful.
any other comments on the structure itself?
No.
No? Okay. I don't think we're at a point where we give it full approval. If you can work on the landscape idea, just to envision it a little bit, that will help sell it if it needs to be sold. And we will do our due diligence on the other part.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you very much, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Okay. Second? Okay, thank you. Is there someone here for this?
What?
Is there someone here for 219? Or is that?
219.
Sure, right. It's off the agenda.
You withdrew it?
Nick, are you keeping?
I
Yes.
don't know the terminology on it yet, but. So 219 is off the agenda at the present time, 560. So did we vote on the adjournment or just at the motion?
No, you do. Can you give me a minute, please?
Yeah, I'm just going through the motion too. All those in favor to adjourn 116 new construction? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Very good, thank you. Do we need to vote on 219?
Hold on a minute. 219 is not adjourned, it's withdrawn.
Okay, so we don't take any action on that. Very good. Is there a motion to adjourn 565? I'll make a motion requesting adjournment. Second? Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay. We're up to 70 Fairfield Pond Lane. This is a gate application. Could you, Mark, would you have record of when the house was approved? I think back in time.
The house construction was just completed.
Right. I think it was at least a year and a half ago
Yeah,
or
it's like
so.
20, I don't know, I think almost 2021, right, John?
Yeah.
Okay. So with this particular project, you'll note that there's a driveway on Fairfield, which is the main entrance, and a second entry shared driveway. Is that correct? Okay. The distance between those two gates is a little shockingly close. It's about 45 or 50 feet. And the design is on, the appearance design is on the second page of the application. The structure is shingle and white, and is that painted white or is that stucco?
The gate,
The house,
the house is shingled with painted trim,
painted trim.
and eaves.
Okay. So I have to picture that here. This is the front main drive. In case you didn't have a chance to go by it, there's a lot of shingle, and that's the white structure. This is another picture of it, back a little bit further. This is what you're dealing with on the main drive. And then this last picture is the side driveway. And we don't have an official setback on the side driveway, is that correct?
Only for the street, on the front property line.
Front property, yeah.
So do you know if there's a driveway easement for that shared driveway
Yes, there is.
to this property?
Yes, the original home that was there had an agreement with the people that I take access off of that access.
That's great, thank you.
So with this design, I just point out to the board that it's not usual that we have a huge solid flat panel near the bottom. And the other thing that is unusual to our normal standards is we would not have a white enamel finish.
You may have an earlier submit.
We have something with a penned notation that it's white enamel. Okay.
Okay, we submitted to the contractor materials.
That's totally different than what we have. Are we sure we're on the right application?
It is.
70 Fairfield?
Yes,
Okay, because the other applicant had something similar to what you're holding.
so this was submitted after reviewing.
Our guidelines?
Yeah, no, so this application, this drawing, this elevation sketch is, and it's dated after this one. This is what the client had first asked us to propose. This is what she had first asked for.
Okay, so this is not correct.
It is not correct.
Okay, very good. Let's see what you got. Okay, and can you put that up on the screen?
We don't know it.
You don't have that either. Okay,
I have the one you have.
okay, all right. So at present, we don't even have a set of plans for what you have. What's your suggestion, since, could we pass that up through? Just let the board comment on it?
Yeah.
Okay, that would be great, thank you.
You start your time.
And the gate would be at the back or the inside of the deer gate, the deer tubing?
Yes.
Okay.
Looking at 40 feet from the survey?
That's bringing it down.
Yeah.
That's mandatory on the front, yes.
So the client is asking for relief from the 40-foot setback from the property line, as compared to a 40-foot setback from the edge of the street. The reason being that this puts this gate.
That has no business here, that's. for the
Yeah,
zoning
that will
board of
go
appeals.
with ZBA. All right. Okay.
So we just approved the design of the gate,
Well,
or the gate at all.
how should that be resolved and what
If
order?
they want to try and get closer to the front property line, they would have to go to the zoning board of appeals and get a variance
Yeah,
for the placement of the gate, and then they would reappear in front of you for approval of the gate. And, you know, all rights considered, give them a building permit.
Alright, so why don't we just let him do that and we'll listen to him another time.
okay.
Well, I don't see anything either way that precludes us, if we wanted to now, review the gate design, being that the applicant has taken the time to come here.
Thank you.
So it's not white, it's not enamel, it's,
Natural wood.
okay.
What is the reason?
What is the discoloration in the vertical?
I'm sorry?
The darkened
It
vertical?
was just to call out
Just to call out.
the picket and that they're turned diagonally on point.
Okay,
versus being flat.
Okay, and what is the dimension of the picket?
It's 1.75 square turned diagonally, so it's 2 1/8.
So it's matching clear to stick,
Yes.
is that correct? Okay. It's not solid, but it's closed in more than we usually would do. I think we try to go a little bit more clear than we do with structure.
Just to give the board, I know I've probably bored you with this before, but to run down the elements that we can look to under 245-49 of the code. Avoidance of excessive ornamentation, concealment from public view, functionality without unnecessary design features, limited structural and visual mass, use of wood natural and unpainted except for light stain, visual compatibility with surrounding properties, harmonious relationship with the neighborhood, mitigative impact upon increasing setbacks, placement at greatest reasonable setback from the street, necessity or absence thereof of the gate post of the security of the property, and that is. Those are our guiding principles.
Okay. Thank you, John.
What is the reason for the gate?
Security for the client. So that's her new front door with a gate there.
I mean, it's on a pretty private road. It's not like it's on the main drag.
Well, actually, there's no speed bumps on that street because they go pretty fast on that track.
Fairfield Pond goes like this?
No, this is Fairfield.
Fairfield Pond.
This is Fairfield Pond Lane, isn't it?
This
Yeah,
is the
this
cut
is
through
between,
above.
this is between Daniels and Hedges. And there's no speed limits, there's no stop sign as far as I know.
Maybe a strong vote?
Well, I don't know if we're supposed to
I don't think
vote
we
on
should.
it. I
I think
think,
we should move on.
I think
So
we
we-
should make comments about the submitted style at the moment. And my only thing was maybe a little bit more visibility through it.
Just for a quick moment, so the plan as presented with the survey would require DPA variance, Mr. Wood, am I correct?
Correct.
So what we could do if the board felt comfortable with it, or we could not, is we could in theory approve subject to the variance.
We have presented 3 or 4 different kinds of dates. This is in the article.
Correct.
Right, so there are 3 or 4 standards that were allotted. We did an internal review of them. This isn't in any of those.
Well, it's not this one, it's the other one.
Either way,
Right.
another matter is in those standards, so now we're theoretically approving one that's not in our
Right.
location.
Mhm. And the fact that there are 2 on the property is something that's unusual to us as well.
I just don't see it.
So what I would suggest is if you have any comments about the particular design that's submitted that you did not have in your packet, please make those clear to the representative for the client. And then I would think that they would go to the ZBA first before we provide an approval for it. Is that correct?
Generally, that's how.
Yes, that's the normal path for us.
If I can address just the survey that I have here, which was updated by Brilski, it
Yes.
shows the gate meeting the 40-foot setback from the property line. You have that one? You have that copy?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Last dated December 15, 2022.
In the lower left-hand corner, yes. Lower left-hand corner.
There's just like, there's no pictures here to look at anything, so we're looking at the.
Yeah, showing the gates here, right, the same one, okay. So,
We gotta get to Ahrb.
I wanna,
Yeah. So.
The gate's going on the back here.
Why do we need a
They're
second, why do we
asking
need a second
for it to
entrance
be
to the
set.
property?
Was provided with the former owner's arrangement on the property.
What's wrong with the existing one?
The existing one's driveway.
Yeah, why don't we just,
Both curb cuts exist now. They came with the properties before the house was.
I understand that, but we're basically approving a second. If we approve this gate, we're approving,
New step for us to.
I mean, another point of view is to just remove the curb cut completely.
I don't know as we can do that. His concern is that we're going into new territory with two gates on this size property.
Some time ago, we had spoken about only a single curb cut as a general.
Well, technically, it is a single curb cut because the other comes off of an access path.
It's a
This is the
second.
first situation where we've ever had a property quite like this.
Right, I think you're right. I think that's the bigger question, not what kind of gate it's. I don't know what to do about it.
Do you understand what the dilemma is?
I do. I think that discussions of the curb cuts might be a little bit outside of this board's bailiwick.
Previously, people used to try to do a double curb cut and have a cul-de-sac. And we frowned on that and prevented that, but this is a pre-existing situation.
The previous house did not have a curb cut from Fairfield Pond. Their sole access was from the access street.
I see.
It was the stainless steel house done by Bill Blickman.
Right.
I see.
This was the pre-existing house. And it came off of here. This was
So-
torn down, sort of memorialized with a model outside.
The double driveways are new. That's all new. It wasn't the
The
old
access
house.
from Fairfield Pond is new to this property.
This unfortunately is the old obstruction. But it gives you an idea of what the law was, what the setting was. So right now you're dealing with this coming in as well as this other side. You see what this one is.
Tell me what you do.
I'm just looking at a map and to see what we've got.
I would say any discussion of the configuration of the driveway is a little premature. The applicant still needs a variance for their intended work.
Well, the survey submitted shows a 40-foot setback from the property line, not the edge of pavement. So that is conforming to our code.
Under construction at the time.
So no variance is needed then?
Not for that.
Okay.
If they wanted to get closer to the front property line, yes.
You're saying the client wants to get closer to the edge of the road as opposed to the property line, is that correct?
She was asking for relief from that setback, and I can explain why, if you're interested. So the way the gates are, we can make this work, right, with this 40-foot setback. However, the gates are opening into her parking area in front of the house. Automatic gates require to meet UL 325, they require two types of non-contact safety detectors. So we incorporate a photocell between the gate columns, but then there's a vehicle detector. There's several vehicle detectors and ground loops installed beneath the driveway surface, right? So the safety loop on the inside of the property and the exit detector are now into the parking area, very close to the front of the house. So it negates parking there because you'll have a gate constantly opening and closing. So her concern was, can she not have the gate, can the gate not be located even if there was any leeway at all, whether, I mean, normally we tell clients all the time, you want a minimum setback from the edge of the road of 24 feet, but every village has their own specific codes. So this is codified now, right? Your 40-foot setback, if I'm correct?
Yes, it is.
So that's part of the Village of Sagaponic's code. Now, in her case, it puts that gate 64 feet from the edge of the road. she's concerned that cars will pull up to the gate, you know, will pull up to the property and then have to back down again. Like, it could be whether it's an Amazon delivery or just someone that's turned into the wrong driveway. Rather than having the gate closer to the road where you still pull a vehicle off and clear the edge of the road. But that's her concern. That's the full length of a tractor trailer at 64 feet. So, but from my perspective as the builder, that puts our safety detectors inside and then the exit vehicle detector beyond that. So the exit detector, even if I had it right up against the safety detector, we're going to be into the parking space. That's all.
But you would still need, from what I understand, a variance from the ZBA if it won't be the 40 feet.
Unless you just cut off the access completely. It's no brainer. Just remove it.
Yeah, but, well,
I don't see us as having particularly,
not sure.
the way that I see it from a procedural standpoint is that if it's a ZBA matter, it's out of our hands. What we're looking at and what we can look at is the design of the gate. It's depending on if you would want to vote on the design of the gate now and grant the gate pending a variance, or wait until the applicant comes back with a variance or conforming plan.
I think B is.
I would rather wait.
Yeah, let's just wait.
And I think coming back with this gate is maybe not the right idea because it doesn't feel very farmy or open.
Usually
Maybe
we've had an
issue with the
architectural
parking in the
style
front
to
yard?
most of the gate.
Or farm style.
Usually we have a farm or an agricultural style tone to the gate design.
Do we have for the applicant, the benefit of the applicant, copies of the designs that we
Yes.
have we put those in the code already? So just for the applicant, for your understanding, the board has issued several guideline images or concepts of what kind of gates we would like to see. So we can probably furnish you with just a
We
printout.
don't have it.
Sorry?
We don't have what you're requesting.
I thought
The
we-
different kind of gates, you never came up with.
Or there were like 5 pictures that we approved.
Maybe
Sign
we
off
could
on.
just adjourn this.
Yeah, okay.
We've all decided we should wait.
Mhm.
Let's just wait
Okay.
and then we can speak in terms
Yeah,
of it.
and then we can get together with that set of photographs. So at the moment, we'll adjourn this. You can speak to John or to Rhodey about your process for the zoning variance for the placement of the gate.
Yeah.
Which is a procedural process that
Sure.
you need to go through for your applicant.
You know, I would just, you know, relay that information back to the client and explain to her that the code was the code, and that's why we had Barilski incorporate the location of the gate at 40 feet away that you had requested, so.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Here are the gate pictures in case you're interested in.
Sure.
Maybe the more by.
All right.
Looks like so.
Those have not been, yeah, those are just samples, those haven't been
Um,
approved. They're not approved, but they are more, you know, I'm
Yeah,
sure
but they-
things like that.
Rhodey had asked that they be sent to her so that it could be presented to the board of trustees, so that it could be.
Trustees.
Well, just for clarity, what I can tell you, which is black and white, if you go to the village code, section 245-73E, lowercase e, there's a list 1 through 15, and those are the criteria that this board looks at in the aesthetic review of the gates. So to save you time, so you know what to look to and what we will look to save you time when you come back to run that through with your client to say like, look, these are the things that we need to address. And just for your client's clarity too, you can explain to her that the Ahrb, we're powerless to give dimensional and setback variances. That's the Ahrb. So yeah, just looking to save you time for when you do come back to us, that those are the criteria that we really look to for gates, really something that's more rural in character. Let me look at the exact language. Compatible with historic character. Let's see. Lack of what's the exact language here? Unusual ornamentation, less ornate designs.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can you send this to me to a PDF? And
You can keep that one, obviously,
Okay.
and then I'll send it.
But I do need it.
Yeah, you got it.
Thank you.
Okay, Megan's made a motion, Nick has seconded it to adjourn this, okay? Thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Alright, and we'll move to 555, sorry, Concord.
Last but not
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Thanks, Mike. Okay, this particular setup is really, really deep on a shared driveway. Looking at page 2, the spindles are quite small. 1 3/8, 1.4 inches for each spindle. Cedar with natural stain, hinge. Anything to add?
Hi, Susanna Herman, and consultants for the applicant. The gate would be down a very long common driveway. It'll be about 800 feet from the road. I tried to follow the code as far as keeping it more open. Natural cedar with a clear stain.
How far in off the edge of the driveway are you?
Off of the property line, it's only about 15 feet. But
Okay.
there's really nobody
There's
past.
nobody past you.
There's one house, if you look at the survey, there's one driveway that's past this one. Which
Okay.
comes in a little bit to the south of where this is located. So, I mean,
Can you zoom into that?
it's plenty of room for a truck or a car to pull off of the common driveway
Okay.
before encountering the gate, which would be.
Yeah, right. And your cold box is in a good spot for that. Okay. So the entrance on this survey is in the upper right-hand corner of the lot. If you zoom into just about, no, that's the other side of the street.
We're looking.
Upper right-hand corner
Do
of
you want me to
the
point
parcel.
at it
that's-
right here?
Sure.
So Sagaponic Road is up here,
Way up there.
way up there, 800 feet away. This common driveway goes past what's farm field over
Right.
here. There's only a couple of houses, and then you pull into this property
That's
here.
the
This is the
entrance there.
driveway that comes in like this. You go into the garage here. The entry gate would be,
Up there. Yep, very good.
and this is the other, there's a driveway across the common
Mhm.
driveway here, and then the last property is here, and then this is the pond down there.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
What is the reason for the gate?
There's two main reasons, one being security, they are kind of in the middle of nowhere, and have a lot of valuable property there, including expensive cars. And the other would be to keep in a couple of small dogs, and they now have grandchildren. So safety for the small dogs and the grandchildren, as well as security.
Just a quick, one quick thing. This is outside of the historic district, correct?
Correct.
Even though it's on Sagaponic Road, okay, good.
No, okay. No?
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just looking at.
There's also, if it matters, there's a lot of vegetation along the entrance to the property.
Mhm.
The rendering is actually a photograph that they superimposed, so that all that greenery is there. So it really is not visible unless you
Yeah,
go
right on the
right
right.
into the
Right.
property, no one's really facing this.
Okay, outside of the concerns, any other comments on the materials or design?
I mean, where is the gate showing exactly on the property?
It's right about where this parked
Well, is
vehicle
there no,
is.
there's no plan? in
There's a
terms-
survey.
We have a survey
Where's the
online, it's not in our packet.
I can,
Yeah.
yeah. So, this is north up here. Right, so Sagaponic Road is up here, 800 feet, you come down this long driveway, farm field here. So fallow at this point. So here's the common driveway, and then you pull in here. and it's right.
And that's 40 feet?
No,
It doesn't look like it's 40
that's
feet.
15 feet.
Shouldn't it be 40 feet?
No, it's a
the
flat
road.
lot.
It's a flag
Oh,
lot,
it's a
so
flag
there's no
lot.
setback, not a 40-foot
Bonus.
setback. And this other stretch of driveway is extended. from
Right,
side
so
road,
Yeah, I
so
mean, I
it's
think
all-
for me, I would just, it's a little ornate here with this piece of
I
arch.
feel like that's really thick, like it's.
Other than that, I mean, it's wide open.
I would love to see these pictures. I could just, because they really just want to comply.
Yeah, I think just taking this arch out would help
Okay.
me a lot, and I think, I mean, being this far back, I don't really see there being a reason for the gate personally. But That's just me. And the design of the gate, I think it's a little. The kids are not, what are the kids gonna do?
I don't know, you don't want them running off the street.
That's not the street. I mean, we gotta go a long way.
I know how old the kids
Landscaping
are.
trucks and contractors
right.
coming.
I don't think that they'd have my vote. I think they have
Okay.
yours?
Yeah.
No, what about yours?
I'm coming back to the idea of, I have to have a reason for turning it down based on council. I would probably grant it.
Okay, Emily?
Oh my God, don't leave this to me.
It sounds like
Can
it's
I
Generally
go through
opposed.
the criteria again? I don't want to bore you yet again.
I just don't see the dogs are gonna go through that.
To me, it's like you need a reason to have a gate, not a reason not to have a
I understand what you're saying.
I don't think the dogs should be able to get through it.
gate. It's just the dog thing, I just can't.
I don't think that's gonna be, I don't.
I don't have any reason to secure it as well.
If you're so far very back, like
There's
you
just
said
so much-
yourself, but I don't think.
So much wrong with it, it's like, I don't know, I've heard 1,000 gate applications, I just can't handle it anymore. Give me a real reason. Reason, period.
So, looking back at, not to bore you guys yet again, but our criteria is avoidance of excessive ornamentation, concealment from public view, functionality without unnecessary design features, limited structural and visual mass, use of wood, natural and unpainted, visual compatibility with surrounding properties, harmonious relationship with the neighborhood, mitigative impact upon increasing setbacks from required setbacks, placement at greatest reasonable setback from the street, necessity or absence thereof of gate and or gate post for the security of property. So the code generally allows for gates. These are just criteria that we can look to as to their presence or lack thereof in turning them down. And I know that I believe the meeting before last, we did grant some gates, and our mitigating factor that we looked to there was that they were virtually invisible to the naked eye of the public. So.
This one's not. I mean, if you're driving back there, I guess, you'll see it.
Hey, you wanna do a vote?
Well, you're turning it down so they can appeal.
That's my vote.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but we're at a split. If, well, you're not at a split if the three of you turn it down. That's a turn down. So that means that they can come back with something different, or if they really want it, they go to the ZBA. Because they don't feel it's necessary.
Because it's already a protected area.
But I do also want to point out that necessity or absence thereof of gate and or gate posts and security of property, that is one of the multiple criteria. I'm not telling you how to vote either way, but I'm just saying that these are all the things that we need to weigh to not be arbitrary and capricious.
Well, Tom, we would be a split, so you would have to come back anyway without.
Well, no, if the three of you say no to this, then it's a vote. It's a turn down, okay?
I feel like I'm against gates altogether, but that's not something that we have to look at it this way. And it is something you're not going to see. It's off the beaten path. I would be inclined to say, okay, but I'm not crazy about the style. But other than that,
If there's a different style you would like to see, by all
What
means.
about just a farm gate? Regular
Show
farm
me,
gate.
show me what you want that to look like, and we can revise that and come back to the next meeting with that.
It's basically an agricultural gate. It doesn't grant a tremendous amount of vertical. You can come over here if you would.
But, I mean, dogs and babies can go right through them.
I just think every time we grant one of these gates, we're granting for everyone else to do, and all you need is a lot of property.
In cases where animals are involved with this, they do a very light street wire fencing applied to the inside.
Okay.
So that would be something that would be
Why don't we
granted
just
approval.
revote when she comes back with it, and we can decide now.
yeah.
I mean, I'm also going to say no because.
This is similar to what you're coming through with, although these are very close pickets.
And we tried to spread the pickets out as far as possible. I was just reading the code and trying to interpret what you were looking
Like that.
Like
It's
that.
like just very
Yeah.
simple, see through it. It's not, you know.
Right, but again, it comes back to that idea of cedar rather than painted wood.
Right.
The
Like
the
that's
style,
my
this design.
ideal
That's great.
style.
And these are broader boards, so you have less chance for the dogs.
Yeah. Can I get that email to me or you can text me?
Yes. you can.
That's me. I sent it to you just now.
Oh, that's your phone.
Okay, thank you. Bless you.
Maybe Kathy email me
Okay,
that one?
so,
Yeah,
yes.
we need to take a few of the gates out of it because I think those were too close together, for example, so let's just revise it and then we'll send it to Pat.
Okay. Yeah, the intention here was to try to interpret the code to provide something that would conform to the aesthetic that the village is looking for. We have no desire to push the envelope with any type of style. It really is utilitarian. They want to be for security and for protection of the dogs and the children. Even if it just slows down a toddler for a second, and that would, or a dog, that would be something that they would want to have. So
The deer grates do that as well. You know.
Well, dogs
That's
don't like
true.
tear grates.
Okay, so should we?
Yeah,
should
okay.
we table this until,
Yes.
until next month?
So, adjournment for the motion? Tom, second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye, thank you.
And when is the October?
23rd.
Third.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, committee of two for October, don't tell it. And
Oh, what did you say?
committee of two for October?
Every time I volunteer, nobody ever calls me. So I'm
Well,
not
that's
volunteering
fine,
anymore.
okay, so that's cool, that means we don't have anything to do. Is that all right with you?
No, you can, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you, great.
What's the time we're gonna talk about?
Yes, December's meeting would fall on Christmas Day. Now, I don't have a problem with that, I have to work Christmas Eve. But some of you might not want to come on Christmas
So
Day.
the one before that in
Yeah,
December,
that's not gonna happen.
the Monday before that is the 18th.
Does that conflict with anything else here at Village Hall? No,
The 18th, you say?
we're thinking on it.
18th is good.
I'm
18th is
not
okay.
in the team.
You what?
I'm not in town.
You're not in town, okay. You want to consider a different day or run with that?
You should have stayed in
Yeah. Well, we'll send it out as a
We could
proposal.
do January 2nd.
We're all gonna be recovering.
All right, just an idea. So you're saying
Oh,
maybe
yeah, that might be pushing.
the 18th?
Okay.
The
Let's
18th.
put the 18th out there and see
You
whether.
just have to
Tony Woods
muscle,
can
muscle
come.
the door, just pull really hard.
I think it's the right one.
Push.
The right one.
There you go. Thank you. So let's aim for the 18th, consult Tony and move it that way. That works for you? Okay, thank you, John.
Which
Um,
month is that on the 18th?
What's that?
Is that?
December
December.
18th, week before Christmas. All through the house, no, wrong
Yeah.
story. Adjournment,
Yes.
Yes.
second, all those in favor, aye at 3:22. And anything you want to say?
Wait, do you want me to end it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, hold
kick
on.
him out, end it.
I have some